Of all, thank you so much everyone for joining this knowledge sharing session for React hooks. So firstly, let me introduce myself. I'm Kaustubh, working with Clairvoyant since approximately 3 years now. And I've been working with GCE team for their LMS project since last 6 months. And in our project, we are extensively using React hooks to a lot greater extent. So there was a scenario or a use case where while doing the feature development, I got some free time to explore React hooks more and to see how I can leverage that to manage my states. Because the use case that I had in my project was a pretty big component, so it had some complex state management logic that needed to be done. Basically, without adding some third-party library solutions such as a famous solution like a Redux. So as we were using hooks, I just thought of just to see what APIs it is actually providing us to in an inbuilt manner to solve these problems. So I just went ahead. Uh, so I can just get started with this basics of React hooks for now. Okay, so so even before starting with this, I would just like to go up for the brush up skills for the React that we know all about, like the things that we actually know. This will be helping us few folks who are actually new to React, so like me, or even it will help me to have some groundwork done so that I could explain React hooks in a more better way. So let's see for the things that we actually know. Okay. Yeah. So the things in React, we know that the React is a JavaScript library we use for building UI components. Everything in React, we treat it as a component. And to manage our data inside a component, we make use of states and props. These are all the basics that we already know, follow. And we'll get more into this for just a brush up purpose. And then lastly, we see that we have a choice to write our own components in our functional class components, dump components, any way that we like. But there were some problems with all those things. Some may be few few may be a lot more complicated to write some test cases and whatnot other features. So we can just brief about them a little bit just before getting started. So if you were supposed to build up a project or a web page similar to something like this in a structure, we would think in a React in a such a way that we would divide all our HTML and CSS content into one of the components. Like for example, we see over here we have a sidebar, footer, and a main content area and header. So these are the components basically that I'm going to treat in order to have a web page designed in a React. So this follows for everything, like even if you're developing a mobile app or whatever web page you are planning to do, it will follow the same structure. So what I meant by we can use React to accomplish this kind of view is like we can easily develop such kind of structure using React. And over here, we see that every component that we are going to have a HTML and CSS markup can be treated as a component over here. So example, header is a component, sidebar is a component, footer again is a component. And again, components, we can treat it as as a functions which may or may not take any parameters. For example, header, we see header, in header we have a John username, which says that it is a parameter that it is going to accept via a prop, and there will be, because it needs to display John over there. But for example, footer, there is nothing as such. This is just a dumb component over here. So we can see the code right at the right side. This is just a basic class representation of how things go and how things we can write up using a traditional way, which we are most familiar with it. But I just want to make a point clear over there regarding the states and props, like how we use them. So considering the render method over here, we have this dot state dot username. This is the actual state that we need to pass it to the header. But for the footer, we see that there are no props passed to it. There is no state passed as in a prop to it. So this can be a function which is not accepting any of those parameters. Then similarly, we have a handle method so that we can mutate our state, the data which is displayed inside our component. So this is a pretty handy method we get in a class components. And then you can see the boilerplate for the class components. We have a constructor, props, and some this.state for initialization purpose with a handler method binded to it. So prior to this, this all actually came when ES6 was introduced, and React then choose to instead use ES6 way of doing things rather than the traditional way it used to do by using React dot create class and get initial methods you may be aware of. But this is something that React thought of giving a choice to it and just keep instead to use ES6 classes for standard approaches. So we see there are some caveats over here. If we go more detailed into this, we can go step by step and understand what the constructor and the bind method over here are. So ES6, as we are extending a class, this is a subclass React.create component. We are bound to have this constructor method and super props, and we need to have this initialization done inside the constructor so that we get access to the props inside constructor if we want to do. But this is kind of some boilerplate that we are actually having with the class components. So we are purposefully making use of constructor, super props, and the binding methods for our particular handlers. But even these are not kind of a problems which can be quite manageable problems. But you can see uh, that we can manage these problems firstly when the class fields was introduced. So class fields leveraged us to skip all those constructor, the super method over here, so that some of the boilerplate is reduced and we can directly set this directly write our states. And even for the handlers method, you can see there is a bind method applied, but this can be also completely skipped if we decide to use arrow function patterns, just like below that we have shown in over here, like handle user name change. So this is a kind of an arrow name syntax, which actually we don't need to bind this, but just to show as an example, I've already done this inside a constructor. So this was kind of a manageable problem. But if we go more deeper into it and add some lifecycle hooks into our components, we would see some kind of a duplicate code kind of a problem over here. So just to reiterate what lifecycle hooks in React are, so I would say that it are just special methods in React due to which we can control the rendering of our component when it mounts, unmounts, or whether it updates. So by going by words, it say when the component is going to mount, we have this component did mount lifecycle. Similarly, did update when the component wants to update, and when unmount when we are done with everything for this component and we just need to do a cleanup. So we can make use of will unmount lifecycle hook. But the problem you see over here is like what React people analyzed, like we are repeating the code over here. So if you see, I'm trying to set a document title inside the mount method. Similarly, when the component updates, I want that title to get changed. So that's why I'm repeating my code to add it in an extra lifecycle hook did update. And again, when the cleanup is done where the component unmounts, I'm trying to just set it to blank. So this is kind of a duplication problem we see over here. But again, React came to a good, pretty standard solution to this. So instead of tightly coupling this lifecycle hooks into a single component where we also have this render and logic applied, we can instead go for a pattern, for a HOC pattern or with a render hooks pattern. So what HOC pattern is like, we just create a new function, we just pass in a component to it as a prop, and then we write all the lifecycle hooks, all the data manipulation logic inside those hooks. And then once we are done with everything, like when we are done with this, all the common code for reusability purpose, then we just return the wrapped component, which we get from the parameter, and then just we pass it to the render method so that it gets rendered. So this is going to help us to, reuse some of this components. So consider a case where you have two or more components which are actually needing to use the same logic. They need to have the same component that mount the same life cycle and there's the same code. So in this fashion, by using lifecycle hooks, we can actually decouple our UI and we can keep this logic separate out of our components, which makes easy, and we can use it like this by creating a wrappers like this. So if you have bootstrapped any of this project from right from the authentication step, you would have observed that you would keep on adding this wrapper functions over here. So there will be a theme with auth if there is an authentication, and then finally you render your application. Again, this has some caveats, like when you are going to have a new functionality added to this component, you're going to end up doing a lot of refactoring over here. There is a too much of wrappers that they treat as. And React community also says that when we do or inspect this in a React, what the browser extension that we have, we would see that there is a kind of a big wrapper hell, and there is a very much of nesting which has been done over here. So this is kind of a clumsy, and even I can't even talk about the use case where we need to find a way where we need to have test cases for this component. And frankly speaking, I don't even know how to write test cases for such HOC patterns or some render hooks. And render hooks to talk about, I would say it's the most ugliest way because it is going to create a lot of rendering logic inside your render functions and creates a lot of messy code. So in order to solve this all problems, what React thought of to create or to come up with a good solution or an elegant solution where we can solve all this problem. So just summarize what problems we actually talked about. So first one was for use of constructor and super, which is completely a standard way of doing things in React classes. It's completely fine, but it's just adding up some boilerplate. We can't forget to add this handlers over here. We need to bind our handlers inside the constructor, but then this can again be solved by using arrow functions. But then we have to make sure that all over our application we are making sure that it's consistent. It cannot be a way that in a component you are having a bind handlers and in other component you are doing arrow functions. In last one of my projects I have seen this happening, and I got into more confusions for this. Then the third one we saw is for the component hierarchy, which is with the render props and HOC patterns that we see that the refactoring thing is quite difficult to do. And then last we have this reusing the stateful logic, which we saw with the lifecycle hooks. Like there is no solid way that we can bind all this code together and we can reuse that code for component without going for an HOC patterns or render props. So React thinks that everything can be solved in an elegant fashion by using function components. So function components are pretty simple. If they are not using any states, they are not using any lifecycle hooks, then our life is going to be easy while writing test cases, because the input and output is always going to be the same, and it will be creating a lot of easy methods for us to do. And even the code I think should be looking quite clean for us. So let's revisit the same example for the web page that we saw, and we can similarly rewrite our all the code using the function component. So this is how you would end up by writing this. So there are some obvious differences that we are not using this dot state over here. We just create a new function. We just destructure our props that we get. Let's forget about the lifecycle methods for now, because there is no way we can have lifecycle methods inside the function components. Then let's jump to the return method. The return method remains the same, except for the fact there is no render method. We directly return whatever JSX we have. And then if we have a handler function, we will be adding another function inside this main base application. It's completely fine. We can add so many functions inside a function. So not a problem. So over here, let's see the differences what we have. So in the function component, we get to know that the syntax is an obvious difference with the class components compared to class components. There is no use of this keyword. So a lot of complexity has been taken out with the function component usage. Then there is a caveat that we can't use set state. I think this is a disadvantage. We can't have lifecycle methods that we can have in a class components. Then the clean code, as I said, self-explanatory, easy for compilation. This is what React claims, and even the POCs or the blogs I have been reading so far, they say that the class component compilation is quite large in size. The bundle size is large. It is making the machine's job difficult, even for for hot reloading purposes and everything. But I've seen a POC over there, and it clearly I can differentiate that the class component minified version for the Babel is going to be of a great size than the function component. So Babel has to do a lot of work over here. But we don't care, frankly speaking, about the compilation, because all just we want to make sure that our code just works fine and it looks easy. And the developers, for the pain point is for the test cases. As of me, I would say it's completely difficult to write test cases when the lifecycle hooks and all those state management things are involved inside a component. But if my function component was a presentational component, then it would have been easy because the input output is fixed and I can easily write some test cases for this. But now let's see the two problems that we can't have with a function component. So React had few harder problems than the HOC patterns and the render hook patterns that we just talked about. So that's why they came up with an idea to introducing hooks wherein we can easily solve these two problems. Now let's see how. Okay, till now, do we have any questions or any concerns or any points if I missed? You would like to add something extra? Because I just want to make sure that this session goes in a very discussion manner. It's not just I'm talking. If you have anything to add, you can please interrupt me anytime. Okay, no one. Okay, anyone have used a hooks in your project? I've been using just recently, just 3 or 4 months in my production applications. You can raise your hands or speak up if you would like to. Oh, nice. Micha has used. Akash.
Yeah, we are switching to hooks. Like we are thinking to switch to hooks because lately we heard a lot about the hooks and the blocks, and you have mentioned few points as well, right? So currently we are having the class structure, and we are facing the same problems into test cases. I mean, we have like coverage of the test cases, but they are not true to the percentage they show, right? So they say you have covered 70% test cases, but those are mostly finding the DOMs and all. So no true test cases we can write as of now.
Okay, cool. Nice to hear this. Okay, so actually, with hooks, even test cases are a pain as of now, but they are actually helping us, or in my experience, it is helping me a lot to write clean codes, and it is helping me to decouple my UI logic, whatever I am keeping in my inside my render method, and whatever the data logic or the business logic goes. I just create a custom hook and just I put over there, so it becomes easy for managing it. Now, coming back to hooks, let's see what the definition has to say. It says that the React hooks are functions that let us hook into React state and lifecycle features from function components. Now, this clearly means that hooks can be only used inside functions. We can leverage hooks to use lifecycle methods like we had in class components, and also we can have a state inside a function components. So the two problems that we just saw about can be easily solved by using hooks. Now, hooks were introduced in 16.8, and the current is the slide when I created it for 16.13. And if you're not actually experimenting with hooks in your project, then I would definitely recommend, highly recommend that you should explore hooks. It's quite easy and it's fun to actually use. It's actually making code a lot cleaner. So let's go ahead with some of the common hooks that we would mostly run up when we write a project. So not all hooks I'm going to cover today, but just a few of hooks so that we just get a glimpse like how the problems are solved and how we can use it just by in a syntax way. So let's go for the first hook, which is a use state hook. This is a pretty simple hook out of all of them. So it is just replacing this dot set state that we had in the class components. We can use this inside a function component just by importing the API directly from the React. Use state accepts only one parameter. It can be a string, null, object, array, anything you would like to have. And then it gets us back two things. First is the state, which holds our current value, and then it also provides us with a handler to manage that particular state. So for example, if I have a handler function, I would just on a button click, I would just call set username to John or whatever value I want to. And the similar representation like what we had in the class components can be seen over here. We need to write a constructor super, there is this dot state initialization, and there is a handler over here. So this is a pretty straightforward hook. Let's go for the next common complex kind of a hook, I would say, for the use effect hook. Now the first hook, use state, solved a problem to have states inside a function component. The second hook, use effect, is going to solve a problems to have lifecycle methods inside a function components. So coming back to the same problem that we had a lot of code to duplicate inside this lifecycle methods for class components. We can similarly recreate this whole scenario into a function component and add a hook like this, so that everything, the code which we need, is tightly coupled inside only one function, and it is not splitted out into some three or more extra functions. And even the code duplication is quite avoided over here, as you can see. For example, when the component is going to get mounted, I'm going to set the document title for the particular state. Then I'm going to create an event handler over here for the window resize method. So what happens when the use effect or when the component is mounted, these two lines are going to get executed. And these two lines, like whether to execute or not, and everything else is covered by the dependency array that we pass in as a second argument to this scope. So if I'm passing nav index, this completely means that this function, the use effect, is going to run when the component is mounted at first, and whenever the nav index value is going to get changed. So this effect will run at that time as well. And again, there is a special thing that we see over here is for the return callback method, which is nothing but a cleanup method. So React will only run this method in cases where we just want to do a cleanup, like similar to a fashion where we see component will unmount method. So while unmounting, this method will get executed. If we don't pass anything inside this dependency array, then our use effect would be similar to a behavior of component did update, did mount, sorry. Now there are some additional hooks. They don't solve any kind of a problems that we had with the class components, but they are just an additional, I would say, hooks that we can easily plug and play into our component so as to get a performant uh, pure component thing. So what these two hooks are doing are they are actually just memoizing our values. Use callback and use memo are pretty similar kind of they have a similar kind of a behavior. So they are just memoizing those callbacks and the particular values. The only difference is, like I said, it is just for a handler method. You can use callbacks if you don't want to redefine or reinitialize your handler method whenever a component is getting re-rendered. And while a use memo is a hook that we can use to do a complex manipulation, where even if you don't want to recompute that value inside the render cycles. So these are pretty handy, and this is why I would also say that apart from keeping our code clean, the hooks are also making sure that we are having a performant code over here, because see this dependency array as a second parameter. If we don't pass this array, we can if we don't pass this, then it won't make any sense, because this function will be running as a typical function. But if we pass this, then we actually simulate a behavior where we had a component should update lifecycle. And I'm pretty sure nobody uses that to a great extent. But with these hooks, you are bound to have it. And the another hook that we see is for use context hook. This is one of my favorites hook. So even before going into the syntax and all those stuffs, let's understand the scenario where we would be using this kind of a hook. So let's consider like we have a parent component. It has got a nested component as a child. Then the child component again has a nest of a grandchild, and similarly going on, it has a great grandchild. So you see, this is a hierarchy over here, and this actually solves the famous problem of all for the props drilling. So if you see, if the great grandchild is going to have some props which it needs to display, like in the web page example that I showed, that header was using John as a string at the top. So consider it was getting that value from a far away nested component for a parent component. So what it would have been doing is like it would just get the values from its parent components. So instead of with this pattern, actually we end up creating this prop drilling to a great extent, so that the parent actually manages the username, but the child and the grandchild don't even know what that prop is, but they are just passing it for the sake of feeding in data to this great grandchild. And consider a scenario where later on going forward, if the great grandchild decides to even mutate that state, it's not possible. It doesn't owe that state. So it has to again add a setter method over here and just add it from the parent, and again create a new prop hierarchy. So as the great grandchild gets a setter method to mutate that state. Now, if this problem was supposed to be solved by hooks, then we would just create a context provider over here. In short, this context works in a provider and a consumer fashion. So whatever we wrap inside a provider will hold the state value, and whatever is inside, like whatever is wrapped, will be automatically getting subscribed to that parent states. So for example, if I have written a provider in such a way where I pass in a value, by the way, context only accepts one parameter. It can be an object like shown. So it has a username which holds the state. It has also a set username handler to mutate that state, and I have wrapped the parent component inside it. So parent component again is in a deep hierarchy calling the great grandchild. So it is anyways going to get that the value as well as the handler by default. There is nothing special that we need to do. React is going to take care of it. And whenever the great grandchild is going to modify that value, whole tree is going to get re-rendered. The syntax for this is quite easy. We just import the create context from React. We just type it if we want to, and we can pass it with an initial value to it. Here we have passed it as null. And in order to use the context, we again need another API, which is use context, and we can provide which of the context that we would want to use. Like in the first step, we are exporting a const auth context, and then in the third part, we are just using that context particular. So any component willing to use this value is just going to call this one line, use context, auth context, and they are good to go. Another hook is like for use reducer hook. This is a kind of a not so complex hook, but it is a pretty handy hook where you have a very complex state to handle inside your component. So again, let's go by a scenario where in our web page you have two or more components, and these are not doing talking between each other, but you need to have something over here. And for example, they are having uh, let's say example, they want to use this local state use state, and they want to mutate this state. So they need to place this state over in a parent component. Like for example, if there is a, let's consider an example better way that if component 1 re-renders, we also want to make a side effect on a component 2. So there are kind of a two or three approaches to solve these problems. So in a web page, two components, how do they communicate with each other using useState? There is no way we can use useState, but if we were supposed to use useState, then we would actually end up creating a new parent component which will be holding these two components together. And this pattern is what we call it as state lifter. So this component 1 and component 2 don't owe the state. They are just passing it down to the parent and let the parent handle all the state manipulation and the handler logic inside them, and just get those updated states as a prop. So any props changes, React is going to re-render. So this solves our first problem. The second case would be the famous case of using React, Redux. So Redux comes up with this magical function connect, which is going to connect our two or more components. We don't need to understand Redux in depth, but just a brief understanding would be enough in order to understand this use reducer hook. So it actually behaves in the same fashion. So coming back to the Redux, we have this connect method, which is going to connect these two components together. Connect method has an access to stores, where store is nothing but some of our functions which are holding our actual state or complex state logic for that particular components. And any of the components which want to trigger a set state operation on it, they need to have a dispatch method triggered. So any time a dispatch method is triggered, it is going to go to the store. The store is going to update our states, and then because of this connect method, these two components, as those are connected, they are going to get re-rendered. Redux has its own benefits and disadvantages. Yeah. Coming to the user reducer hook. So user reducer hook is a pretty similar to what we have in a Redux fashion. So over here as well, we have a component 1, component 2. These two have its own states. So using this use reducer hook, we can create a store for our own components, and we can have a dispatch handler to it. So use reducer is going to return us back two values. First one is a store and a dispatcher to mutate that store. So the component again in the same fashion is going to trigger a dispatch. It will go to the store, it will update that store, and the component will get re-rendered. The only difference you might have seen is like there is no connection between these two components. We don't have any connect method over here. So that's the reason I would say that use reducer is very much similar to use state hook that we just saw, but only in cases where we have a complex states. So let's go for the syntax. Use reducer accepts two compulsory parameters. One is the reducer function, and second is initial state that we just want to initialize our reducer with. First parameter is a function which gets state and an action, which is the same like Redux that what we have been using. It is just a switching between the actions, doing the state manipulation and returning it. Nothing fancy over it. But the next parameter is the initial state for which we can use to initialize our reducer. There is also an optional parameter which we can use for complex methods where we don't know what our initial state is, and we can actually use a third part, another hooks, and we can just repopulate our reducer with. So summarizing this use reducer, we see that the reducer is like a use reducer hook is same like a Redux, like a pattern. It is same like use state hook. Then with use reducer, we get the same benefits that we can also have two or more reducers together combined using just a simple reduce method that we know. The great point advantage over here is like this is inbuilt API of React, so we don't need to introduce any third party library. There is a minimum boilerplate required, like in case of Redux, that we need to do. Then lastly, it is for our local state managements. There is nothing called as a global state because there is no connect method available over here. Now we have been talking with the local and the global states, so this is pretty self-explanatory. So we have to make a decision making over here when to use state, when to use reducer, and when to go for Redux kind of a fashion. So it completely depends upon our state things. So if your component is sharing data between two of them, then more than one component is sharing the same data, then I would say let's go for global state, or else just keep it with the local state, which is this dot state or use state. So this is just a flow, the same representational what we talked about in just a flow diagram. If it is shared by more than two components, then go for global state. Then see for if your function is going to get if your state are going to be used by other components going forward, then you should again revisit your decision and then again convert it to the global state if required. There are also pretty other ways to manage states globally that I am kind of aware of. So you must be aware of this Redux, the famous one. Then there is another method that use reducer and use context can together work and accomplish the same thing. Then there is an Apollo GraphQL thing. If you are using Apollo in your project, then I would say that this would be quite handy. I just want to experiment this, but let's see how it goes. Apollo actually inbuilt create a cache of all these things so that if you pass in data, if you grab data from using Apollo hooks, you pass it to your components. And if you have to do any state manipulations, Apollo itself has a cache management thing over there applied so that your state is actually shared with each of those components. And then there are some third-party solutions like Recoil Mobex and Flux. I haven't tried it yet, but they are still in the market and must be interesting way of doing things. So today I'm just going to focus on use context plus use reducer hooks because those are inbuilt in React, and this is what I have experimented in my project. So let's go for demo. So till then, do we have any concerns or anything you would like to know? Okay. Okay, even before the demo, let me just give you the glimpse of the UI, like what problem I had and what problems using hooks we can solve without using this Redux thing. So we have these two components on my web page, component one, component two. These two components are basically doing the talking. So when I click on any of those components on the left panel, my right component is also getting re-rendered and it's also triggering its state changes. So how this has been managed is I've been using use reducer hook, and then I have been wrapping these two components using the use context API hook that we just saw. Pretty simple. I'll just walk you through the code. You can see my visual code.
No, we can see on your slide.
No.
You did not see even the demo?
No, we can see the demo.
Uh,
We can see your local host up and running, but we can't see your editor.
Visual. Oh, glad I asked. I thought. What's wrong with this? How about now?
No,
No? Okay.
just check. I think you would have shared only your one section of screen where the
Uh,
screen had your visual, didn't have the Visual Studio Code. Just drag your Visual Studio Code to the extended screen.
this is the problem I face. Sorry about that. You can see it now?
Now we can see.
Okay. So this is just a Bootstrap application that I use Next.js and TypeScript. It has got nothing to do with hooks, but it was just easy for me to create this up. So I created this boilerplate. Things to note over here, inside over here is like in my project, I've been using these two ESLint plugins, React hooks and performance. These are quite of a recommended ES plugin hooks if you are ever trying to use hooks in your project. So React hooks is going to, while committing, warn you if you are missing any of those dependencies arrays that we saw inside hooks. Like it accepts the second parameter, and somewhat if we miss any of those dependency array, then it will actually warn you, or actually it will automatically add that for you. So in such a way, your component will be getting more performant and more like a pure component. It will just simulate, not a pure component, but it will just simulate the behavior and it will be more optimized way of doing things. Then again, this is a third party ESLint plugin I would like to talk about is for React performance. So this is plugin used when we are actually trying to, uh, pass in an object as a prop, or if we are trying to pass in an array as a prop inside our function component. So this will what happens if we don't use such kind of plugins, we accidentally keep reinitializing that value over and over inside our uh, life cycles of renders. So this will be kind of a handy hook which will warn you to not do such things. Let me walk you through the simple project directory structure. I have main pages. I have only two pages over here, contact and index. I'm more about focused on the index page. I have two views. Then that view, one of is the home view, which actually has an HOC wrapper over here, because just we say that those components, some components will be static throughout or your application. So we can say that those are a global components like the header and footer. It is just taking care of those things. While the main component, like the main content area section, is going to differ based upon your route. So inside my this home route, I have a tree structure component. I have placed it like this. So this will be the main entry point of my component. I have two components, the component one and component two that I was talking about. That's nothing but post sidebar and post content. In order for these components to do the talking, I am just wrapping them inside a provider in such a way. So provider is having nothing but a value to its, like it is a main state or main data that we get from our API. And how we get this value is like by additionally doing one step by passing it via a use reducer hook. So use reducer hook, again, as we know, it is going to return us with two values. One is with the main state that it is holding, and again the second handler, a dispatch handler basically, so as to mutate that state. And it takes up two parameters as said, initial state and use reducer. So let's see what our initial state would look like. So whenever my component is mounted, I'm just go. If I try to ever console this on my component, I will see this kind of a structure. Just a sample initial state. And the first parameter is crucial. It is just nothing but a function which is holding my state. Let me show you that. So this is my reduce function which is holding up my whole state manipulation logic over here, similar to a redux fashion. It gets state and action as default. State is the previous state that we know, and then there is a manipulation done just by using it for a switch case. And once we are done with it, then we are just returning whatever we have. We are just modifying the state. Additional thing I've just done over here is I'm using a produce function from Immer. Immer is a third party, easy to use library. It's not necessary to use. But if you were to have observed the syntax over here is like I'm directly mutating its value. So there is no need for me to use the spread operator, pass in the old values, update the new values, and then return the whole object. Using Immer package and this produce method, we don't need to worry about that. We can directly mutate our state because it actually returns up with the draft state. So if you try to console this state, it is basically a draft object that this library gives us. So it's also a handy library to use. And once we are done with the initialization stuff, you can see over here for this component, we see that as this function is returning nothing else but the user reducer callbacks, it is returning us with the state and a dispatcher. Okay, so this is my initial state. This is the initial state getting passed down to this to both components. But just even before that, if we have some API logic to add on, if we want to pre-populate our data, then you should be using some life cycle hooks. Traditionally, you must be familiar with the component did mount, but replacing that in a hooks, because it is a function component, we would be using a hook called as use effect, and it would only re-render if the dispatcher has changed. So what we are doing is like we are just feeding our component with the initial data. We can do all the structuring logic that we want to do just when we get the data. For this demo purpose, I'm using mock JSON. So there is nothing I'm calling for API structure. I'm just getting the data fed to my utility functions, doing all the operation that I need for easy rendering stuff. And then I'm dispatching an action, which is going to load my reducer with this values. So this is how we update the store. So first you saw we just passed in the initial state to our store over here. But as in my component loads, when I'm ready with my API data, I'm going to throw a dispatch action to it. So as my reducer should be holding the new values, the data, the API values in most cases, which I want to. Now, these two methods, if I were not using this context, then I would have been passing down this tree state and a dispatcher to all these components and even to the nested components if they ever need to uh, have this state used inside them. But with the context method, I don't need to worry about that. I just wrap those components using a context and I pass it to it. So now those are after use effect, those are now holding my current values, the API fitted values. And I'll just show you a sample example where how I can use that state value. So I have a common method over here. So for example, on the UI, if you see that on click, I am actually making a state change. So these two methods are kind of same method. But what it's doing is like on a click, it is dispatching one of the action. It is mentioning the type just by the Redux way. Only thing to note down over here is like this dispatcher has been provided by a use reducer hook. So it is not compulsory over here to have a type. But if you have a complex management thing, then it's easy for management stuff, and we can go ahead with the same Redux like pattern. We can have a type defined, and then we can have a payload like which node to update. And I can just show you how types we can add is like this way. So one of my type is like one clicking just expand that particular node. So it gets a type and it gets a payload over here. It tells which node ID to expand. And these are the simple constants that we usually define, which we are familiar with this. Uh, yeah, that's pretty much from the demo end, I guess. So any concerns we have till now? Anything you would like to see again?
I don't have a question, but one good thing to see, which probably I know most of us would have seen it. If not, just keep an eye on the structure. It's not something we're talking about. I'm talking about hooks. But if you see in most of our projects at times, we don't have our backend REST API ready. We need to keep our structure up and running. We have the contract. We need to create a mock data. So have a separate section of mocks, probably your module wise that you are doing it. Have your structure defined there, right? Have your interface being defined. Use that structure properly so that when actually you do the integration with your REST API, your jobs becomes a lot easier and you reduce a lot of rework. Just something that I wanted to highlight because you did that structuring. I saw even it's a demo, but you try to bring up the best practices that you usually follow in a project. So it's good to see that.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Okay, cool. So I think this is what I had for the knowledge sharing session. If you don't have any other questions for me.
Okay, I know most of us attendees today may work on React or may not. How do you guys think? I know most have been thinking about hooks because it's out there for a long time. Do you think that this session has helped you at least maybe to get started or maybe take you a level up in what you have done, and then you want to take it forward probably for your POC or for the project implementation? Anyone would like to add anything who are mostly working around React, like to add something on that? I know a couple of folks in here. I just don't want to pull their names, but feel free to add anything that you feel can do it.
Yes, Shubhan, I have one question. Maybe I missed. Kaustubh, can you explain the rules for hooks again? I missed that.
Yeah, because rules of hooks are kind of a design pattern, like how they are developed. There are certain rules that I have actually skipped inside this session because it was not a part of my initial scope. So the hook rules are kind of two hooks rules that to remember is like we cannot have our hooks called inside a conditional. Like if we have a if condition and then we are calling some other hook, then it is not allowed because that's not the way hooks internally work. And the second hook that we can take care of about is like we need to make sure that we call our hooks at the top level of our function hierarchy, not nested inside any of those deep down components. So that's what I introduced those, like I just showed you the ESLints plugin, which help you to make sure that we don't break any of those rules, because if you break, then it will be a compile time error.
Yes, and one more thing I like to add then.
Okay.
Every hook start with use. Maybe I heard or not, maybe I missed, but I thought I missed. So every hooks should start with use a keyword. So
Yeah, I kind of, this is a pattern that they guys are following. It's not a compulsion, I guess, but yes, you should be following the same pattern. That's correct.
no. Actually, this is compulsory, very, very much compulsory because internally they check string start with use and
Oh,
they keep a call stack example because we have one hooks and another hooks and another means use state, use effect, use layout effect, and they take a call stack. Example, how JavaScript is run. First statement, second statement, third statement, and they keep a track of that. Use them means we can use state 100 times and they keep value from how it's calling means first one we keep false, second we keep true, second when we have empty string, then we have a three array of 3 0 1 2 3, and they keep a track on 0 1 2 3 and they plug it internally. So yeah, use is compulsory word for
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Okay, I agree. But
You can explore or I will share that link as well. So
yeah, even I saw those POCs where they have been showing how internally the hooks work and why that order is so important. But the good point is I
okay,
wasn't knowing that it is a strict syntax to use
yes, it's
keyword.
very much
Okay,
strict.
cool.
Yeah. And one more thing, which is very important. I don't know important or why only release was hooks is we are going to about suspense thing in React 17. They promised, but they are busy little bit. But they planning suspense thing and suspense thing only lagging. We have a what can say bottleneck or obstacle to we have a this thing and you everyone know JavaScript this how is work in function state in pure function what can say we know this we don't have a this we have a pure state that's why they introduce main motivation we add state using recompass you can check library recompass library which is the same react core team member introduces they plug that idea and they make it official but one and only main intention we need a suspense thing we this is very confused so that why React want everything be a pure. We don't have a this state, this state. Means pure function we know. Whatever we input give, they return same. May they now have a prediction. So that's why they moving everything to pure components. So class, we can't manage this. And even suspense is very difficult to use with class. So one motivation for hooks is we want pure state. So hooks is therefore.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Good. Yeah, I think those are nice inputs, Sunil. Thanks for adding them for all of us. Great. Does anyone have anything else they would like to add? Okay, looks like silent. Good. Kaustup, then you don't have many questions for answered, so you are safe today. And thank you for the session. Thank you.